we wanted to do something or like had a big dream or something that we wanted to accomplish, they always just said like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Even if they thought behind closed doors, like that's never going to happen,
Yeah.
they were like, yeah, sounds great. Like, okay, yeah,
Oh,
what do we need to do? We can support you to do that. And if you work hard, it'll happen. And so that's like, when people say like, oh, how did you get there? I'm like, that's the true answer.
right.
Because I had to be raised like that to even think about being in men's professional sports,
Yeah.
then even put myself in the position to apply for those jobs. It's like, that's how I got here, and then after that, it was the same as everyone else. I did the internships and everything else, but the original part is just having the idea and the self-efficacy to know that I could do it.
So you're the first woman to be a full-time strength and conditioning coach, the first woman to be a full-time hitting coach in the history of professional baseball. You're with the New York Yankees. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
uh, I'm happy to be here, and it'll be fun. Let's get it going.
Yeah. Well, I like to go back a bit. You grew up in Omaha, Nebraska. You've got two sisters. Your dad worked for American Airlines. Your mom was a bookkeeper. What was childhood like for you?
um yeah, my parents were, thanks for asking that, because normally people want to start with my story, with the Cardinals when I was 24, and I always just like to say like, I'm in this position because of my parents and my
Yeah.
upbringing. And my parents are a product of like, their parents were factory workers and just very blue collar, and my parents were raised in that household, and they very much raised us the same way, even though they both had what I would consider more white collar jobs. We grew up really very blue collar, very Midwest, very kind of middle of the road, middle class. We had everything we needed, but nothing that we didn't, type of thing. And they just were really instilled in me at a young age to be capable, be independent, be hardworking. Like, I mean, I know everyone probably says that, but they were very, very much like, I'm here because of the way that they raised me as a young girl. And I would say even my dad, especially, I have two sisters. And so I think even now, if people are like, oh, you have three daughters, like, haha, must be tough. And he's like, just Google my daughter, would you? Like,
Right.
he's like, like, no, that's not how I raised them. I raised them to be very strong, capable women. And I can even remember when I was a young girl, 10 or 11, my dad would be going to the YMCA to go and work out, and I would ask to go with him, and he always took me. And I just think back to that and go like, he could have said no. He could have said, no, you don't belong in the weight room, or you don't belong there. But he took me with him, and God knows what I was doing. I just was probably messing around, or I was following my dad around doing whatever he did.
Yeah.
But that's not important. The important part is like, my parents never really, if we wanted to do something or like had a big dream or something that we wanted to accomplish, they always just said like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Even if they thought behind closed doors, like that's never going to happen,
Yeah.
they were like, yeah, sounds great. Like, okay, yeah,
Oh,
what do we need to do? We can support you to do that. And if you work hard, it'll happen. And so that's like, when people say like, oh, how did you get there? I'm like, that's the true answer.
right.
Because I had to be raised like that to even think about being in men's professional sports,
Yeah.
then even put myself in the position to apply for those jobs. It's like, that's how I got here, and then after that, it was the same as everyone else. I did the internships and everything else, but the original part is just having the idea and the self-efficacy to know that I could do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you played sports growing up. When did you make that decision that kind of was like, yep, I want to go and do this baseball thing?
Well, I don't usually, I tell the story more and more now because it was so long ago, but at first I kept as a secret. So the reason why I'm in professional baseball, I would say, I played college softball and I knew I wanted to be in sports always. So I knew I wanted to be a strength coach. I went to LSU and was doing a graduate assistantship at LSU, which obviously is a really great athletic school. So sports and strength and conditioning, but really baseball came because the whole time that I was kind of burgeoning my career as a strength coach, I was dating a minor league baseball player.
Oh,
So
okay.
I played softball in college. He played baseball at the same place. We dated for 2 years. Then he was drafted and played for the Dodgers organization. So as I was kind of climbing the ranks in my career, I was learning all this crazy stuff about minor league baseball, which no one knows about. It's like
Right.
this underground, it's this underground thing. And he was like all over the country and just like the Latin American side of things and moving up and down and like bad nutrition, long bus rides, like all this stuff that I started learning about. And I was just so fascinated by the journeymen that these guys were. And I just was like, God, I think I want to get into that because it's a challenge. Like
Yeah.
you're moving all over the country, they're playing a game every single day. And so from a physical standpoint, you have to be on point and like understanding recovery to the fullest. And so I just really like honestly learned a lot from him, which is funny because it was an ex-boyfriend that actually got me into it.
Sure.
So anyway, that's why I was like fascinated by really most people are like, oh, I want to be in the big leagues. I was fascinated by minor league baseball and Latin America and just kind of the early journey of how these guys even get to the big leagues in the first place. So that's really what attracted me to that.
Yeah, and you had your own challenges along the journey. I mean, even to the point where you're applying for teams, you weren't hearing anything back, that you actually had to change your name to Ray, and you kind of changed your resume to be more general neutral. What happened after you updated your resume and changed your name there?
Yeah, I got a lot of responses.
Okay.
The backstory a bit is obviously in order to get to the point where I thought I needed to change my name, I was already having problems. So leading into the 2013 season, I faced some like really blatant gender discrimination where I was actually told like, you're not going to get this job because you're a woman and they're not going to hire you. So I was pretty naive to that point going into the 2013 season. And then I sat out that season, waitressed, worked at Lululemon, picked up a couple more internships on my resume. Coming around the next year, I was already kind of dreading applying because I was like, I've got this great young resume. I mean, at that time I had worked for Arizona State, LSU, Chicago White Sox, Los Tigres de Licey. I worked in the Dominican, LSU. Like I had this crazy good resume for a young person in sports.
Yeah.
I was like, it doesn't matter because they're not even going to open my resume when they see my name on my email. And my sister of all people was like, why don't you just change your name on your resume? And I was like, I was like, that's a good idea. So I changed it and I got immediate responses. And, to be honest with you, it was a pretty like short-lived, like, alter ego, Ray, because it was so awkward. Like the conversations I was having after that were so awkward that I just was like, all right, this is not getting anywhere. But what it did, like, at least what it told me is finally I was getting responses where in the past I just was getting nothing, like no response. So I was getting like really hopeful responses of like, yeah, we're really interested. Let's set up an interview type of thing. And so I was like, wow, okay, my resume is good. What I'm doing is paying off. It's just not in the right way yet. And it just is going to take the right person to give me that opportunity. So I think that, it was very short-lived, but it was really important for me to just understand that my resume was good. I just was like pretty confused for a while there. And then I changed my name and I was like, oh, okay, it really is just this one little thing, my gender,
Right.
Tiny little detail.
Yeah, I mean, you ended up working with the Cardinals, the Latin America, Houston Astros, like you said, the White Sox organization, and then on with the Yankees. When you got the job offer from the Yankees, what's going through your mind, and what did you do right after you got the news?
I just remember the moment. What was it like? Like basically, the guy who hired me, Dylan Lawson, he's the hitting coordinator for the Yankees. He worked for the Astros, and that's how I met him, that I was a strength coach and he was a hitting coach. And I just was, I was inserting myself into the hitting meetings all the time, like learning what they're doing, learning their philosophy so I could be better at my job, but also just I was genuinely curious about that. So he knew my work ethic, and also just he was a bit of a mentor, a friend. I had definitely like had dinner with him and his wife many occasions. And so he was the one who actually got to offer me that job, which was really cool. So it was a mentor of mine
Very nice.
that was able to, I would say he made history, when he offered me the job, because it's like I might get the credit and the podcast request, but like if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here.
Right.
So it was really cool that a mentor of mine was able to like share that moment with me. And like, I think we told each other we loved each other. It's just weird, but it was just such a surreal, like, I accepted the job and he was like, whoa, like, okay, what do we do now? And I was like, I don't know, you're my boss. And he was like, all right. He was like, okay, I'm just so happy for you. And I was like, well, you too. It was just a very, very, very cool moment.
Yeah.
And of course, like to work for the Yankees, and the fact that it was the Yankees that made that decision, who are viewed to be a very traditional organization and have such a deep history. And so for them to make that decision, to make such a progressive hire, tells you a lot about the organization and the people in charge in the first place. And so just really cool, all around experience and opportunity.
Yeah. And then you even moved to the Netherlands, right? And you actually like worked with the Dutch baseball national and softball teams there. What was that experience like?
I missed the sunshine in Amsterdam for
Oh,
sure. So it was a little, maybe not my favorite city I've ever lived in.
okay.
Even though really cool history and stuff, but also just it was a tough year because I risked a lot. I gave up my job with the Astros and moved to Europe with 3 suitcases. I sold my car. I sold everything that I own. I got rid of everything. I moved to Europe, not knowing what was on the other end of it. I
Yeah.
didn't have any idea. I didn't even know at the time if I was going to be able to be a hitting coach. I didn't know if I was going to be a scout. I didn't know what was going to happen. And so I just, it was a risk and it was
Yeah.
tough. And most people at my age at that time, I was 30. Yeah, I was 30. I took my life savings that most people would have put down on a house and depleted it, just threw it into another degree and moving across the world and basically paying myself out of my savings. And it was a huge risk. So it was a difficult year. Honestly, it was really difficult.
Wow.
But obviously I just always tell people, like, the bigger the risk, the bigger the payoff. And that obviously was the case for me because I was able to get a job with the Yankees as a hitting coach. So
Yeah, what a great risk it was for sure. You mentioned that you genuinely love meeting people who are what you call seekers. What are seekers?
I think critical thinkers, people who aren't accepting just like what they're fed, and saying, wait, is this really how it should be? Is this really the best thing? Is this really it? Is this the life? Is buying the 6-bedroom house in the suburbs, is that it?
Yeah,
Or is there more?
right.
And so for me, it's like, how many people have told, you can imagine how many people have told me, like, that'll never happen. This is how it is.
Right.
If you want to do that, you're going to have to do this. And I just have broken every fucking rule.
Yep.
So I'm just like, people who are seeking the edge, people who are breaking the rules, people who are thinking critically and doing things differently and finding the edges of what's possible, that's what I would consider a seeker.
Awesome. And you started this podcast called the Theta Wave Podcast, which I've been listening to the episodes. Really great show, by the way. But for folks who don't know about that show, what's your podcast about?
That podcast really truly is a hobby. Even my blog, like, I write 1 blog a year. It's just because I like to share things.
Yeah.
And for the podcast, I meet so many different people and I'm just inspired by their stories. So I want to share them. And so that's what that podcast was about originally. The theta wave is a brainwave associated with the flow state. And so the flow state, for anyone out there who doesn't understand that concept, is just like, theta waves are brain waves that you can have while you're both sleeping and awake. And it makes it unique.
Yeah.
And people say they're like, a lot of elite level athletes getting into the flow of just like, they don't even remember what they did or how they did it. They just were subconsciously alive. And they were in this flow because they were in their height of creativity and they were having so much fun, or they just were focused so hard on the task that they were trying to accomplish that they weren't even really consciously making the decision to do it. That's the flow state. And so I just try to interview people that I think are in the flow state more often than average.
Yeah. Oh, very cool. Well, researching on your website, you also talk about this women's retreat that you started called Female Executive Mentorship. Sounds really awesome. But what can folks expect to get out of that? And what happens at those retreats?
Well, I don't know yet because the first one was supposed to happen this fall and we pushed it back.
Okay.
So that'll be happening next year.
Nice.
But basically, FEM is, I'm partnering with a woman named Jen Wiederstrom, who's a very well-known woman in the fitness industry. And we both, there is a giant lack of women in top level positions. So there are lots of women in the workforce. Like, that changed a long time ago, right? But there's still the lack of women who are in very high ranking positions in male dominated industries. And also just like, if you're at a C level of any company anywhere, not even in a male dominated industry, even if it's a female dominated industry, you're still probably going to be the only woman in the room. just to hold a top level position in any industry is usually male dominated. And so I think that we as I'm almost mid 30s, 33, and she's 37, like we're getting up the ranks in our career, and the higher you get, the less women are above you to like guide you.
Yeah.
So we wanted to create basically female executive mentorships, and so just mentoring women that want to be high level career women, and what that means from a personal side of things and the personal sacrifices you might encounter, and also the professional sacrifices, the professional things you might have to deal with, and that they might already be dealing with, that they just need someone to go, hey, you're not crazy, like this has happened to me as well.
Yep.
And someone to just share stories with. And so the event basically is going to be a very small, intimate event. It's going to be capped at 30 women, application only. There'll be 6 mentors. And just to give you an idea, we've got like a CFO, we've got a CEO, we've got myself, a hitting coach for the Yankees. Jen Wiederstrom is extremely well known in the fitness business. We've got a senator. We've got women who are ranking in extremely high level positions that are going to be the mentors at the event. And they'll be speaking, but it's not like a normal event where you go, you watch someone speak, and then they kind of go off to the hotel room and you don't have an opportunity to even talk to them.
Right.
These 6 mentors will be available for like 3 full days. So they'll be at the breakfast, the lunch, the dinner. They'll be at all the activities. They'll be speaking. They'll be very, very engaged. So 30 attendees and 6 mentors. We're hoping to have a lot of very like one-on-one deep conversations with, about people's struggles and just what I do. And so it's a very small event, and we're just hoping to make a big impact on women who are in the right times in their lives that kind of need that extra boost to go from middle management to the C-level or whatever. I mean, the C-level doesn't exist for me, but if I want to get to a high level, I think it's important to have male mentors too, but there's plenty of those I have tons of male mentors in baseball. But I can't really turn to a lot of women and go, what did you do in this situation? There is no one. I just have to make it up, Right. So I want to be a mentor for other young women that are kind of feeling that loneliness.
Wow. Man, I can't wait. That's awesome. Such a great event. I think it'll just make huge impacts on people. I wanted to transition to some fun questions here real quick. I played baseball for a long time. My favorite player is Nolan Ryan. Do you have a favorite baseball player?
My favorite baseball players are guys that I worked with. I'm not a fan. I just like any other industry, I suppose, like once you get to know the guys behind the scenes, you're like, oh, I cheered for you, like you're not really nice and you're not a good person. Like, why would I ever want to? So I would say like my favorite players are guys that I've worked with that have worked really hard, and you might not even know their names. Like there's a guy named Inoli Paredes who I worked with when I was with the Astros, who just made the big league roster for the Astros. And I'm super proud of him, and he's worked really hard, and I know him personally, so I'm a big fan of his. But it's like, that's tough. Also, I didn't grow up watching baseball. I grew up watching softball. So My favorite baseball player was a softball player, and that was probably Jessica Mendoza or Kat Osterman, who people still might not know because I was a softball fan,
Yeah. Well, I'm a huge music guy, so I would love to ask this question. What's a favorite type of music, or do you have a favorite band that you like to listen to?
Ooh, Mark Bassey is one that comes to mind. He's kind of I don't know, he's like kind of hip hop, kind of not.
Okay.
I guess. I just really like his music. I'm like, as a strength coach, you just listen to everything. And so rap, country, rock, classic rock, oldies, Latin music. There's everything on my playlist, like everything. So, I'm all over the place. What about you? What music do you like?
I used to just be straight metal, like, more rock. And I think over the years, as I've gotten a little bit older, my eyes and my ears have opened up to like more hip hop, more country, but I'm probably more on the rocker side than all of them.
Yeah. Something about the beard and the flag said that to me.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure. Well, Rachel, such an honor to have you on my show. Thank you so much for taking the time. This was great.
Yeah, absolutely. Some good questions there.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you so much for checking out the show today. I wanted to just take one quick second of your time to point you to erikallenmedia.com. I have a ton of free and paid content on our resources tab. Click on that. tons of books, tons of websites you can go check out, some secret websites in there as well for you. But listen, I am available for hire for anything from product videos to content videos, review videos. I do a lot of how-to and explainer type videos, box opening videos for brands. I also do laser engraving for anything that's wood product. So if you need some, coasters made or fun tags or something like that, shoot me a DM. Happy to help you out. You can check out some of my work on our YouTube channel there. Really appreciate you checking out the show today. Thank you so much for your time. Have an amazing day.